Welcome to the Motion Gallerium. In the future, alien monsters have invaded Earth, and at a last and desperate attempt to survive, they recruit civilians from the past to fight for survival in the future. The story takes off at the Dan Foster residence where people are celebrating Christmas. Dan, a biologist, struggles to find employment after his service in Iraq. He's married to Emmy and together they have a daughter, Murray. Despite his struggles, Dan joins his family and watches soccer on TV, and suddenly, a portal appears on the field and armed soldiers emerge alleging to come from the future in a world suffering conflict with alien beings, and as a desperate attempt to save the world, they came to the past seeking help to defeat the monsters. A year goes by, and during such time, the jump link, a wormhole used by the whole world, has been taking soldiers to the future, and only 20% of them survive the war against the monsters, and yet, victory is yet to be attained and civilians in all countries are recruited despite all ongoing anti-war protests worldwide. Subsequently, Dan lives his usual life, as a biology teacher at a local school. However, his students seem uninterested due to the loved ones they've lost in ongoing war. As he continues to teach, Dan receives a notification that he's been drafted. He then goes to fulfill his medical examination, where he gets strapped to a chair and his other hand is inserted into a device. He undergoes an examination revealing he only has 7 years left to live under usual circumstances, along with his prior service in Iraq, makes him a suitable candidate for deployment. An armband is surgically attached to his arm to ensure obedience. Emmy supervises a support group for the future war survivors, to which soldiers return in bad shape, after only a week there. Dan goes to see Emmy and she tells him to run, to which Dan seeks the help of his father, James, so he could remove the device. Dan resents his father due to childhood abandonment. As a result, they fall into disagreement and Dan decides to keep the armband. Dan goes home and bids farewell to his family before heading to the base. Recruits undergo training, and it is in this place Dan meets his future partners. Charlie, a geothermal specialist, and Dorian, a former time traveler. Charlie explains that the ones deemed less likely to survive till 2051 are sent so as to avoid temporal paradox. Later, they discuss time traveling limitations, that soldiers can only time travel 30 years ahead with no chance of reversing time if humanity fails. At night, a distress signal is sent from the future entailing that soldiers are needed to defend the remaining laboratory used to study the monsters, as the monsters have located it and are about to destroy it. Dan and his draftees are pulled into the portal to a world filled with monsters, and a malfunction caused them to fall 3 kilometers high at Miami Beach in the future. The fall is catastrophic, such that not many of them survive it, to which fortunately, Dan falls into a swimming pool where he saves Charlie. Their commander reaches out to serving members of Dan's group, explaining plans to clear the city of the monsters using bombs. The mission is to reach the lab and extract the scientist in charge of critical specimen there and evacuate before the bombing starts. As they enter the lab, they are met with a terrifying sight of spikes embedded in the wall. They then discover that the scientist they are after had died, so they proceed with another objective, to locate the test tubes with the important samples and evacuate quickly. Dan locates the samples and they begin to evacuate cautiously. Unfortunately, the monsters locates and attacks them. The soldiers are quickly outmatched, and at one moment, Dorian saves Dan's life, exposing the monsters' greatest weak points. The soldiers manage to leave the building, but the monsters still pursue them. Just as the soldiers celebrate the arrival of the evacuation team, the monsters attack them mercilessly, and despite that, Dan's team fight them off anyway. Nevertheless, the fighter jets start bombing the city, narrowing their chances of survival, and in spite of that, Dan is determined to save everyone, and in spite of the losses, they escape. Dan wakes up at a base in a Dominican Republic where he is summoned by the commander who, as it turns out, is actually his daughter Murray, in the future. She expresses her gratitude but is uncomfortable talking to him, and keeps reason as to why she brought her father into the future secret. Murray then shows her father the queen of the aliens, far more sinister than the males nesting underground. While Murray has a toxin for the males, she's yet to find one for the female, prompting it to remain elusive. She then assembles a team to capture the queen so they can create a toxin to neutralize her. During the helicopter flight, Murray recounts how the invasion started fast from northern Russia, destroying and killing people, and within 3 years, only 500,000 people survived. She tells him that the monsters have no other outcome other than humanity being food to them. The helicopter arrive at the caves where the female lives, and despite being sedated, she puts up a fight, making it difficult to contain her, to which Murray descends to join the team. They struggle to neutralize her tentacles so she won't throw her spikes at them, and Murray takes a shot at one of its tentacles, attracting the attention of the queen, who charges at her with rage. The queen then calls for the male's assistance, and unable to idle by, Dan descends just in time to rescue his daughter Murray, where they struggle to neutralize her, and finally they lock her in a cage and is quickly airlifted before they could be intercepted by the males. Murray and Dan hop on a van and escape to the coast of the sea and signal for help. Murray expresses displeasure over Dan's disobedience as she told him to stay in the helicopter and he disobeyed. In this moment, she tells him that during the time he hasn't lived yet, he left his family when she was just 12, to which Dan is left at speechless by that revelation. She then tells him that he dies in a car accident when she's 16, therefore, she hates him for leaving her. They are rescued by a helicopter that takes them to an oil well, where Murray studies the queen, and to keep her contained, Murray administers a dose of tranquilizers per hour. Murray then extracts fluids from the female monster, so she could finally make a toxin that can neutralize her. She synthesizes the fluids, but none of it proves capable of destroying the creature's cells. Murray perseveres through the night with the help of her father. For Dan, tomorrow marks the 7th day of his service, and when such time comes, the device will automatically take him back to the past. Morning blooms and they are yet to synthesize a toxin, and it is at this moment she reveals her plan that, if she can synthesize the toxin, she can give it to Dan so it can be mass-produced and weaponized in the past. Finally, Murray succeeds in synthesizing the toxin, to which moment the queen summons the males which attack the base. Amidst the chaos, Murray and Dan attempt to flee, to which they are met with heavy resistance, but push through. In the process, Murray gets struck by one of the monsters. Dan helps her to the helicopter. However, the explosion destroys all of them, leaving Murray incapable of proceeding. Murray sadly apologizes to Dan for all she said and expresses her love and gratitude to him for everything while entrusting the toxin to Dan, and at that moment, Murray is pulled down by one of the monsters, to which Dan heroically jumps after her, only to be sent back to the past. The moments he's encountered with her daughter inspire a deep need to ensure a safer future for his daughter. So he concocts a plan to find the monster's initial arrival and destroy them immediately, and because there haven't been any UFO landings recently, they believe the monsters to have arrived much earlier. Dan recruits the help of Dorian and Charlie to investigate the aliens' arrival on the planet. Charlie examines Dorian's claw he keeps as a trophy, discovering clues that lead them to a China-Korean border in the year 946 AD, suggesting that the monsters must have arrived on Earth a millennium ago and remained dormant under the ice until the ice melted due to environmental changes. They then try to reach Russia and finally destroy the monster, only to be denied help by the US government because all the resources are directed into the ongoing protests. Desperate, Dan goes to his father, who owns a plane, for help, to which he agrees to take them to Russia. They then fly there with enough serums, and upon landing, the group use snowmobiles and begins to search for any signs of the monsters. They finally blast through the ice and unveil a cave within which an alien spacecraft is hidden. The team take immediate action and get inside, only to discover that the spacecraft was not operated by the monsters they encountered in the future, but another species altogether that was transporting the monsters as weapons. As they look further, the team discover cocoons and they immediately inject toxins into them, killing them instantly, to which some escape outside, so they reach a sea inclusion to detonate the spacecraft, to which only Dan, Charlie and James survives. Unfortunately, one of the female monsters escaped the explosion, to which the three decide to track her down and finally find it and fight. During the fight, Dan blinds the monster with the help of his father wielding an ice pick. In the struggle, James lures the monster towards himself using his blood while Dan attacks it from behind, a strategy that helped Dan inject the toxin into the monster's mouth, killing it instantly. The news spread quickly and America takes credit. Dan, accompanied by James, goes home having fulfilled his need to protect his daughter from the monsters. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button for more recaps, a small gesture to you, most meaningful to us.